Good afternoon to everyone and special welcome from Media Reach OMD and LBS. Thank you very much for joining this event.
Thanks, Nitin.
Yes, thank you. Emmanuel, can you project please? Yes. So go to the next slide. So before we start the top media trends, I would like to cover the flow of the event. So maybe just to give 1 minute. Yeah. So we start with the introduction. I will introduce myself and my co-host, Dr. Uche. Then second, we will go to the top media trends, Dr. Uche and my colleague Emmanuel, who will take us through the top media trends in Nigeria for 2022, what we think and our perspective. Then part 2 of the event, we will have a panel discussion. I will again introduce you the panelists who are here now already present, and then we will go for the question and answer session. So by sharp 3 o'clock, we will close this event. So let's go with the introduction. Okay, myself, my name is Nitin Chandra Nandekar. I am the Regional Media Managing Director for Media Reach OMD for Nigeria and West and Central Africa. I have been working with Media Reach OMD and Africa continent from last 13 years. So I have a quite good experience. People call me Indo-African now. And also I have experience working in other continents like Asia and Middle East. So I have worked on various multinational clients, serving them in terms of media and marketing solutions. So with me, I have Dr. Uche Uzo, who is the faculty and academic director of Africa Retail Academy at Lagos Business School. He is also a senior marketing lecturer by taking senior marketing management and the founder of AfriTail. Also, Dr. Uche has been awarded for many awards for his excellent contribution at LBS and other companies. And he also serves on boards of several companies. So thank you, Dr. Uche, for joining us today. Okay, so and also let me introduce to Emmanuel. Emmanuel is going to talk about the media trends with Dr. Uche. And Emmanuel is working with us from more than 8 years. And he has almost a decade experience of media and marketing. I would say he's one of the smartest talent what we have in the industry. So very soon you will hear from Emmanuel. Before we go there, I would also like to introduce about Media Reach OMD. Yes, you have seen the video and probably some people must have missed it. So Media Reach OMD is the largest media agency and the #1 media agency in Nigeria as well as West and Central Africa. We started our operation in 1999 and since now we have almost completed 22 years. We have always been known as in terms of providing world-class planning and buying to our clients. We have some of the initiatives what we have taken are amazing from day one. The key initiative which has been taken in terms of media planning data and tools, that was taken in 2007. And still in the industry, we are using that and we name it as Media Star. Also our annual Media Facts publication, which is an industry aspected data collection book it talks about West and Central Africa, covering all the 23 countries in West and Central Africa about the advertising scene. And it is only the manual, we call it Media Bible for media advertising, which gives the information about media advertising, which also talks about media spend and demographic and psychographic profile. So Media Facts books, we launched the first Media Facts books in 2003. Now we are almost completing 17 years. And this is the launch of 20th Media 2020 Media Facts books. Okay, let me also tell you that why we are doing this today or what are we doing today. As we all know, the COVID pandemic was a watershed movement for the world. And indeed, marketers who more than ever before have come to realize the importance of timely data to make better decisions faster. So data is extremely important. So on the heels of the release of our latest Media Facts book, we thought to take it step further by bringing all stakeholders together in a knowledge of sharing forum to look at the top media trends in Nigeria in coming 2022. Our partnership with Lagos Business School the foremost institution on business knowledge and management in Africa, is a step in the direction of our goal of improving the marketing ecosystem by sharing relevant insight with business owners and marketers for better planning and decision making in 2022. So I am very confident that today's presentation and the information is going to be useful and relevant for you, for most of the advertisers and most of the marketers as you plan for 2022. So now I will hand over this to Dr. Uche, who can further introduce to himself in more detail and LBS objective, and then he can talk about the trends. Dr. Uche, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nitin. Thanks for your passionate and enthusiastic welcome to all of us. And good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Indeed, for me, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been 19 years at Lagos Business School, having a wonderful time seeing this institution, which is now 30 years old this year, grow to become #1 in Nigeria, #1 in West Africa, and I dare say #1 in Africa. Lagos Business School currently is accredited by the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business and the AMBA, Association of MBAs accreditation institution. So we are right now amongst the top 5% of business schools that have this accreditation. Lagos Business School is also #1 in Africa, according to the Financial Times ranking for executive and custom education. And then our latest achievement is the fact that Lagos Business School is now the first and the only educational institution that is ISO certified. We have the ISO 9001 certification, which we achieved this year. And why are we doing this? I think for us, it's really a wonderful opportunity to democratize research findings that, as Nitin said, can help decision making for us in business. Democratization is very important. Gone are the days when one can just have data and keep data to themselves. Data is power, data is might, data is knowledge. And we believe that this type of engagement, where we are sharing data and the insights from that data, will help us to achieve our collective goals for next year. The other reason why we are doing this is because we want to promote this platform for thought leadership. We believe that there are many thought leaders amongst us, and we want to hear from them. We want to share ideas. We want to project unique ideas that can help the continent move forward. And we think that Lagos Business School is well equipped to do this in partnership with Media Reach OND. And then this is also an opportunity for us to get feedback from stakeholders on what types of products, services, and engagement activities we can provide to better support those in industry. So we think this is a good platform to get that feedback. And from there to customize programs, events, engagement activities that will support those in the media sector. So I'll say overall, this is why Lagos Business School is interested in doing this in partnership with Media Reach. And I'd like to say a big thank you to them for making this possible. So I think it's time to look at our trends, and which I'm very excited to talk about. I'm going to talk about 5 trends, and then I will hand over to Emmanuel Adediran, who will be looking at some other trends for us. Okay, so yes, today we'll look to showcase 10 key trends that will shape 2022 and beyond, and each trend is broken into 3 parts. Exactly. So we would look at some data that begins to explain why we think there's a trend in that direction. We will then state the trend. And for us, the trend is not just what we are seeing, but what we expect to see moving into the new year. And then we will discuss the implications for advertisers, media owners, and those in the audience. Can we move to the next slide now? Great. So this is the first data point that I think I find fascinating. And this is the data comparing the ATL, which is above the line media spend in Nigeria in the last 6 years, and the annual inflation rate trend. If you look at this statistic, if you look at this data very closely, you will see that media spending has been on the rise and that inflation has been on the rise. I find that interesting because if you look at what happened globally in terms of media spend last year at the peak of the pandemic, actually media spend dropped significantly globally, and there was really an economic downturn and there was inflation in many parts of the world. Yet in this case, Nigeria defies logic, which tends to happen a lot. Here we are seeing that media spend actually rose with inflation. And this is actually, if we move to the next slide, something that we anticipate will continue, that above the line media spending will continue to rise coupled with inflation. And why do we think this is the case? We think this is the case because, again, one thing that will drive media spend next year is the elections that are coming up. You know, the elections are a big deal, and there's going to be a lot of spending in that direction. But we also foresee that as inflation rises, brands and those who manage them and the agencies that they work with are going to want to be more aggressive about winning a share of the customer's mind. However, there are implications of going in this direction, and this is what we are going to be looking at. I think that one big implication, starting with the audience before moving to the advertisers and the media owners, is actually that we're going to see the consumer's wallet shrink a lot more. And because of that, they're going to reprioritize what they choose to spend on. And because they are reprioritizing on what they choose to spend on, essentials will matter more. And therefore, premium brands are more likely to go to the background. People will still buy premium brands they value, but we foresee more sachetization, so breaking premium brands into small units. There's also likely to be creative consumption happening, which is that people, as they buy, since they can afford to buy less, will use the same products and services for multiple purposes. Now, all these have implications for those advertising and the people who are media owners. I mean, on the side of the advertisers, what we see from this is that a short-term outlook will not be enough to engage effectively. We can't just hang on to the fact that there will be funds coming in from the elections, which are likely to happen later in the year. We need to think about the fact that there will be, there's likely to be overloaded information coming to the customer, and they will be looking very closely at what is essential, what adds value, what message would support them in the buying journey so that they make the wisest buying decision. And therefore, this calls for innovation. This is a time for innovation, and that applies to media owners as well. Of course, there will be investments and great content will be the bit. But those who will win, if we're talking about the strategic way to go, is those who step back, looking at the trends we see in consumer behavior, given that inflation will stay high, and they innovate. They bring up innovative content, innovative solutions, innovative channels to approach these people. So innovation is what will win for those as we see this trend. This is our first trend evolve. Can we now move to the next slide? So very interesting data here. So of course, I'm sure you know, everyone knows here that internet as a media channel has been growing year on year. And actually, because of the pandemic, and we're saying this about Nigeria, not just globally, this growth has continued to be exponential, and it's not something that is going to go away. However, the interesting thing is that television still delivers wider reach than the internet in Nigeria, and also plays a strong role in driving conversion online at a much cheaper rate. That is something that is really quite interesting. Yes, a lot of people are, going online to carry out many activities, to search, to get information on what they want to buy and all that, but they rely on TV still to help them because the experience is important. They want to be able to see and hear and identify with the brands that they are talking about. Can we move to the next slide? And so what we are seeing, what we anticipate to be a trend here that is likely to continue is that rather than a displacement, we predict a strong convergence between offline and online media channels. Convergence is big, and we foresee that that will continue. But I must say that convergence is not the same as integration. And this is something I'm going to emphasize a bit more now. Convergence is not the same as integration. The fact that we see stakeholders using both channels doesn't mean that they will necessarily integrate them. It is in the integration that the strategic advantage is, if you know how to integrate. Convergence doesn't mean exactly the same as integration. So let's look at the implications of this convergence that we foresee. There will be more, starting from the audience perspective. We foresee more touch points. Of course, if people have the online and the offline channels, there are more ways you can reach the consumer. And therefore, consumers are likely to be more demanding. They are going to ask for real-time feedback. They are going to ask for real-time engagement. They are going to have a lower tolerance for failure. If brands mess up, if advertisers, promote a message, but then the experience in using the product or service does not match it, customers are going to be quick to tell that just because they have many other channels. And then we are likely to see people who hate particular brands using the online channels more effectively to complain about what they dislike about brands. So this is a wake-up call, starting first of all for the advertisers, to think carefully and therefore to move away from a silo-based approach, which means I'm only traditional or I'm only digital. It really requires stepping back strategically to think about what will digital do for us and what will the traditional do for us, and which segment am I speaking to, and which of these channels will speak better to these segments. So it requires retooling and reskilling, because running digital channels are quite different from running traditional channels. And so I think that what would support advertisers in this aspect is seeing themselves as a route to market, not just a platform for putting messages across, but a route to market, a route to make products and services more available, more accessible, more visible to customers and consumers. And I think the same thing applies to media owners here. Cross-channel thinking is going to be very important. It's going to be strategic here. And cross-channel here is what I'm referring to integration. Cross-channel in the sense of having different channels, but then getting them to speak to each other in terms of information, in terms of on-time, provision of information to customers. So multiplicity of platforms won't be enough. It's how you integrate them in a strategic way that would matter more. So as we see this convergence, and of course, there's here the example of the case of radio and social media driven channels integrating together. I think that's a good example of what we think would be a strategic advantage. So convergence is not the same as integration. And for you to effectively achieve this integration, you need this route to market mindset, seeing your target audience as the market you serve and seeing yourselves as the route to make those products and services available, visible, and accessible. Can we move to the next slide? So the third one is an interesting one here. I'm sure you know what's happening in the fintech space and how unicorns, I think right now, 3 of the 5 unicorns we have in Africa are actually Nigeria-based, and we can see some of them here. I mean, Flutterwave is one of those unicorns. The very interesting thing about the digital businesses we're seeing, the fintechs and all here, is that they are actually kicking off their massive reach by using traditional advertising channels. And this is really counterintuitive, because one would expect that, being a fully digital brand, that they will go the fully digital way to advertise. But guess what? That's not happening. We're actually seeing that the digital giants are going the traditional way. So this is something that is interesting. Moving to the next slide now, about the trend we see from that. Back to the basics, more digital-only brands will move to offline channels for authenticity and for credibility. And I think that's the key thing there. Consumers want that authenticity, they want that credibility, they want to touch, they want to feel, they want to connect, they want to put a name to the face. And therefore, what this means is that traditional is not going to go away. Linked to our second, finding or insight, it's how you integrate digital and traditional that really matters to deliver on this authenticity and credibility that we're talking about. So let's move to the implications of this. I think that the implications are quite key here. We foresee for the audience more touch points, more engagement, more feedback, more brand association. And again, it's logical. They already know you digitally. Now you come to the traditional space, and that gives them room to express more what they feel and what they expect about the brand. For those who are in the advertising space, again, that moving away from the silo-based view of engaging in advertising. It also involves more collaboration, more collaboration and integration at the end of the day. For the media owners, I think the critical takeaway for me in terms of the insight is that this trend really is going to force media owners to rethink what consumer segments they serve and what their roles in the buying process are. They are going to have to ask themselves, are we just educators, or are we gatekeepers? Are we influencers? Are we initiators? Are we deciders for the customers we serve and for the brands we sell? I think that this is an opportunity to ask those tough questions, because the advertising and the media channels are actually key actors in every buying decision of a customer. And therefore, understanding themselves as such can give them a new mindset to manage this integration we're talking about. So let's move to our next data point. Gen Zs. This is one I really like a lot because I'm passionate about young people. So it's fascinating. And by the way, this is very important because, close to 100 million or more Nigerians are actually below the age of 19. And, it's a very interesting piece of information to be looking at, especially if you are thinking long-term about the type of audience you will be serving in the near future. So what do we see? Gen Zs daily, their consumption of online and television is at 95% and 80% respectively. So online is doing better than TV. But radio, surprisingly, is only at 15%. So Gen Zs don't actively consume radio. They follow, rather, their favorite online personalities on radio stations, popular for their music and entertainment content. So they might not directly follow radio, but those personalities who have an online presence and speak on radio, they are following them. Moving to the next slide, I think that this really has an interesting implication for us, which is that unlike the older generations, the highly mobile Gen Zers in urban Nigeria are not actively consuming on radio. to me, the major takeaway of this trend is that democratization, consumer democratization of advertising is going to only increase. What does that mean? What that means is that these Gen Zs who are on TikTok and all those other social media channels are going to reshape the advertising landscape of the world, precisely because they are going to use their own ways of expressing themselves online to redefine what advertising means, how they want it, when they want it, where they want it. And therefore, this has implications for stakeholders. If we move to the next slide, we need to start seeing the Gen Zs as democratizers of advertising and start thinking about how to engage them more effectively. These Gen Zs, they are fickle. They easily switch from one brand to the other. They are really highly influencer driven. They are looking for social causes that they can identify with. And so cost marketing is going to be very critical. And so for advertisers, thinking about this carefully, if you see the Gen Zs as those who democratize advertising, that will force one to think about how to engage them more effectively. And actually to think that if they are not engaged, they can end up being a threat to our traditional advertising model. Because in a very cheap way, they can make their own types of adverts and share to channels that are beyond our reach. And so we have to ask ourselves critical questions. How do we better understand the nuances, of serving these different channels of Gen Z people? And how do we decide on what types of channels would work for different generations of users? So strategic thinking is required here. Does our strategy address the impact of gaming, streaming, music, and all other social media? Very good question to ask. And so for the media owners, it's really a call to think about how can we get the Gen Zs, the youth, to have a stronger voice in our content? How can we accommodate their passions, their needs, their interests? And how can we also integrate offline and online better? In fact, podcasting is an example of a social media channel that may take over radios completely, because not only because Gen Zs prefer podcasts to radios, but also because that podcasting allows a lot more interactivity and a lot more integration across different channels. So linking podcasting with radios and those types of integrations would also be something important to look at. Moving to the next data point now. Online, a lubricant for growth. Very, very interesting piece of finding here. So on the one hand, during the pandemic, we saw that online and TV were relied upon for general information. And I think this is something we all could identify with. We're all locked down, we're all in our homes. What we had was the internet. However, there's a beautiful example here of how Media Reach itself worked in partnership with MultiChoice and a couple of other brands here to co-create content that involved fusing TV and social media together in the same experience. So there's the example of Owambe of Indomie here and Turn Up Friday, which are great examples of how to engage brands and how to engage consumers. And the results were startling, very highly successful initiatives. We're also seeing a great, use of video on-demand penetration in Africa and Nigeria, and it's actually a global phenomenon. On-demand has come to stay. The Netflix model of this world has come to stay, and some argue that it will actually displace the traditional cinema, type of model. So what does all this mean? If we move now to the next slide, the trend that we see from this is that the pandemic has accelerated digital adoption, and this will continue to grow. So indeed, digital adoption is going to continue to grow. If you don't have a digital presence, it's going to be difficult to expand your scope and your reach. But it's the integration that matters. It's not just having it, but how you strategically integrate that matters. So if we go to the implications now, one clear implication that we see here, looking from the audience perspective, is that as we see more digital adoption, we are going to see the audience demand more for personalization, for customization of content. We're going to likely move away gradually from just providing a mass, porridge of content to people to really focusing on particular niches, because that's what digital adoption allows you to do. So we have to ask ourselves as advertisers whether we are ready, whether we're prepared for that disruption. The audience remains king and should be placed at the center of all marketing activities, right? So the consumer is power, and therefore keeping this engagement on requires thinking about where to start from in terms of personalization. And then the on-demand model then is interesting because it helps us to rethink how we want to engage, whether to use a subscription model and so on and so forth. For media owners, it's also a call to embrace more co-creation, doing things together with the customers, with the audience we serve, with third parties. That has come to stay. So digitalization, of course, knowing in our own part of the world, is nuanced. So it's really at the end of the day, deciding on what works for you and fitting that into your overall strategy as an organization is what is important. So I think those are the 5 trends from me. And I'll now hand over to Emmanuel to continue talking about the other 5 trends. Thank you.
Emmanuel, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Please confirm you can hear me now.
Absolutely, go on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Uche. I'll just try and hide the floating panel so that everyone can see the screen properly. Nitin, please, I need you to just give feedback. Can you see the screen clearly?
Yes, go on, please.
Yes, thank you. So just taking it on from where Dr. Uche had stopped, we also realized that a lot of viewers are spending more time watching as well as engaging with entertainment content. And this, what you have on the screen here, are data that we picked over the past 4 years, following some very popular entertainment content on TV. And you can see here that there's a clear increase in share audience numbers year on year. For example, the popular Big Brother Nigeria show recorded in this last 2021 edition, we had over 1.2 billion votes, which signals massive, engagement. In the year of the pandemic, we recorded 134% increase, in audience viewership. And closely associated with that, you could see also that there's a new trend of new entertainment content, coming onto TV, as well as some old classics also making their way back. So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is a classic example that most Nigerians can relate to it, seen on TV. They took a break, but going into 2022, this content is going to be coming back on television and all of that. And the trend basically that we see here is, for most brands, right, things like your conventional exposure will soon be a thing of the past. the new future, okay, and present is engagement. And we are foreseeing that most advertisers will be placing more demands, with brand integration and infusion, co-creation of content. And why are we saying this? The implications is quite interesting. For advertisers, I think coming to a realization more and more that sports placement alone, your conventional TVCs, cannot fully deliver on brand objectives. Dr. Uche in previous slides has spoken extensively about how the consumers are changing. So therefore, audiences are beginning to place more demands on brands. They want more relatable engagement with brands beyond what we've experienced before. And this is putting most of the advertisers to task on our creativity as to how we engage with these people. It's no longer going to be business as usual, and we already have seen some of these examples. But in doing that, there's also need to be cautious, okay, and not just jump on anything that comes at brands. Brands will have to strike a balance between aligning their brand values, persona, target audience understanding, as well as the kind of content and places in which the brand, is being infused. So that is a very important decision in going into, partnerships or co-content creation with both the media owners as well as the, content producers. For media owners, I think that's a welcome, development, because this is what has been the cry of a lot of them. More interest and investment in content development. And now that we have more brands coming on board, for partnerships, it would only go to increase, the quality and development of that particular sector. However, we believe that, or we feel or expect that media owners would have to also be flexible in partnering with brands, because brands partnerships, they come to the table with an objective, right? With a clear expectations. So it's in looking at how we can create an alliance that creates a win-win scenario for both brands as well as media owners that is key. And to achieve that, we also need to look at balance, because for audiences, you need to keep your audience in mind. The reason why your platform is the go-to platform is because you have the eyeballs and you have the audience attention. So in getting brands to come in for co-creation, partnerships, and sponsorships, for example, you need to also keep the consumers or the viewers at home, in mind, so that we don't dilute the main reason why we have the audience in the first place. And for the audience, we feel that these are the clear winners in this scenario, because more investments in content creation means there's going to be proliferation of content to watch, and that's provides opportunity for deeper interactions with the brands. So in looking at this particular trend, we feel that it's something that will continue to increase. We have classical examples in 2021, for instance. You had the King of Boys, partnership with Guinness partnered with the producers, and you could see a very classical case of beautiful products and brand infusion into the storyline, of content. We expect that this would definitely continue as a trend. The next trend here basically looks at the dominance of second screening, the phenomenon of second screen. And basically what we're saying here is increasingly we're discovering that consumption of particularly TV is no longer happening without interruption. So viewers at home and the audience are watching television alongside a second screen, which more often than not happens to be the mobile device, okay? And we're seeing that this is increasing, not just in Nigeria, but it's a global phenomenon. What you have on screen here is an example of a scenario that looks at football, okay? Football content. And we're seeing that shortly before a live match, consumers or viewers at home tend to do a lot of interaction and consumption of content on the digital platform. So they're either checking, live pre-match statistics, interviews with the club owners and all of that before the match. And when the live match starts, which is usually on linear television, okay, you have the white graph showing, the increase in spike on linear television. But while that is going on, the second screen is also being engaged because football lovers like the banter. And this banter is not just limited to the viewing centers where they are. They also want to banter online, sharing content and engaging, or even doing what you call a simultaneous consumption, where you're watching a live match and you're also keeping tabs on other live matches that are being broadcast at the same time, usually via live scores and all of that. And, there are lots of reactions that go on. So the conversation here is not just during halftime, but during the match as well. We have this consumption and interaction across both screens going on. Post the football match, the conversation then continues, on social. So the trend here is advertisers, okay, we see that advertisers are going to be adopting interactivity on the second screen even more to bridge the fragmentation of attention that's happening. So rather than, whine about it, you really can't do much as to whether, the consumer would watch the television or interact with the second screen. So more and more, we're predicting that advertisers will take on engagement on the second screen more seriously. And what are the implications here? We're having what we call an evolution of mass media as we used to know it. It's now going into what we call mass customizations, because you have multiple channels and you have your audiences scattered across, those channels. Another thing that we feel advertisers will need to pay attention to is impact-focused campaign planning. All right, so you don't just run campaigns as we used to have them. You need to look at impacting your audience, okay, or your viewers, so that whether or not you're on television or on the second screen, the brand remains the center of attraction. And we're going to be showing you, some interesting examples of how certain brands have begun to do some of these things. It's also a need to have what we would call a community, okay, of your consumers, such that whether or not you are on television, okay, your brand remains in the lips of the consumers and of course in their faces long even after the the limited period of exposure happens on television. And increasingly as well, influencer marketing is a very good way to achieve the kind of results that we're talking about on second screen consumption. For the media owners, what this implies is the audience attention is changing, and you can't exactly guarantee that attention by just being on one particular channel or platform, okay? So we need to look out for more ways of driving consumer and audience engagement beyond just one channel. And we have some good examples, that brands or media owners are beginning to look at, such that the conversation extends beyond just one channel, okay? We also feel that for media owners, there's an opportunity to do more with the owned data that you have, your first party data for your consumers or those that are, are linked on your platform. And research will be very important to understand your audience better, okay? What are their interests? What are the things that they like? So that you can then use this information in, crafting and engaging with them across the multiple, media touch points. And for the audience, they've been the center of practically all of the conversations we had today. With multiple options, comes the fragmented attention. So they are divided across different platforms. You have binge consumption, which is consuming at the time that they feel like. So I might not be available to watch a full 90 minutes football match, but I can catch up with the highlights of the match, post the football match. Or maybe my club is playing and there's a whole lot at stake. I want to save myself the trouble of putting myself under pressure, but I'll just watch the highlights of the match and the conversation, continues. For them, it's going to be deeper, immersive experience, both with brands and of course with the content that they love. Moving on to the next slide here is an example of one of the brands. So this is a live TV show, okay, that engages consumers to send in videos of themselves dancing to the live music that is being played.
Ladies and gentlemen, okay, don't let us forget the winners. We have some winners here already. The first winners I'm announcing tonight are the Indomie Solo Dance Competition winners. And we have 2 winners. We have a male winner, we have a female winner. And this is the madam. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for her, make some noise for her. Madam, please send us your contact to the WhatsApp number, send it. And this Oga, Uncle, hello, well done, sir. You are doing well. Please just send us your details on the WhatsApp number so that we can give you your prize. And what they've won is they've won 6 cartons each of Indomie noodles. Make some noise for them and make some noise for Indomie as well. All right.
Okay. So basically what you saw was an example of engaging consumers because they will be on their second screen. So why not take on that narrative or the conversation on that second screen and more like grab the attention to the brand. The next trend here is looking at the digital switchover. So far, we have had the switchover conversation started since 2016, and that's basically the migration of all broadcast stations, television to be precise, from the analog signal to the digital, okay? And we've made significant progress in that front. And the plan is that by the end of 2021, all broadcast stations in Nigeria will be fully digital. And what are the implications of some of these things? Lagos rolled out, I think, earlier this year in April, to be precise, and other markets have been, in different phases scheduled for the switchover. But like I said, by the end of 2021, all TV stations will be on the digital signal. Now, we did a trend analysis over the past 8-9 months in 2021. And what we found is already, even before the switchover was fully effected, average viewership on cable has been increasing dramatically. In fact, in markets like Lagos and your northwestern markets, Kano, Kaduna, you already have cable viewership overtaking terrestrial, okay? And the implication of this is we see a trend here that the viewership habits of those that are on terrestrial is going to change with the proliferation of available content that would happen when they eventually come, onto the digital platforms. Because before now, we used to have TV viewership being divided along the lines of terrestrial and then cable. On cable, you have multiple options, but on terrestrial, you have limited options. But now that both channels are now being fused together into one, it means the average terrestrial viewer now has, the same, if not more actually, options to content that the terrestrial, that the cable viewers used to enjoy. And there are several implications, for the different stakeholders. For the advertisers, what we're seeing is the fragmentation would continue even further. And it means you would now have to spend a lot more, okay, to achieve the same level of reach that we used to achieve before the switchover happened. Because, before now, with a few network stations here and there, you have covered the entire country, pan-Nigeria. But now, to achieve that same level of reach, you are going to have to buy a lot more channels because consumers are scattered in terms of viewership across over 200 channels. So to optimize on this, we have to rethink how we plan for reach, okay? And some of the smart alternatives to the initial blanket approach to achieving reach would now be to move to affinity-based targeting, which is more like interest-based. And that has been something that is popular on cable, where I want to reach out to sports enthusiasts. I know that there are dedicated channels, that show sporting content, and that's where I'm going to place, my content. So it's more similar to how you have digital targeting, where you are targeting based on interest. So those kind of conversations will have to now start happening on television as well. Also, for media owners, it means the playing field has now been leveled, okay? Especially for those that are on the terrestrial front. It's not going to be survival for the fittest because some of the benefits or advantages that they used to enjoy has now been democratized to everybody. So you are all on the same platform, and the consumers now have the power of choice to choose what they really want to watch. And they are no longer stuck with maybe one channel due to signal availability and all of that. And this calls for content re-engineering. Just like I'd mentioned for the advertisers, affinity-based targeting will be very key. So media owners would have to take a decision as to whether they want to continue offering a myriad of content, or they want to focus and play in a niche space to capture market share as well as that of the audience. And this also opens us up to conversations around programmatic buying, because with the digital migration done, it then means that we can now begin to talk about programmatic buying, which is automated or technology-influenced media buying of adverts. So these are conversations that we see, we predict will begin to happen going into, the new year. And also, audience measurements would have to, be taking a second look at as well. Though there's a trend that we're going to talk extensively about that, but I just thought to mention that at this point. For the audience, as much as they would have a lot of options, the DSO also poses certain decisions to them to make, right? We were predicting that it's possible to have consumers, okay, moving from pay TV, right, as we have it now, to the free TV platform, because now you have access to the high quality content, that you would have been missing out on while you're on terrestrial, come to you at zero cost. The DSO, the free TV, is done in such a way that you buy the setup box at a one-off cost, and then you don't have to pay the regular monthly subscription. So for those that are at the bottom of the pyramid, now realizing that they have access to those entertainment content, that they would always want at a free cost, we might see pay TV losing some of their subscribers to the free TV platform. And we talked about the quality of content already, and TV viewership is expected to increase over the years, even more than we have at the moment. The next trend here is speaking to some of the research that we did at OMD. During the pandemic, OMD had some questions that we needed to answer. And we came up with an hypothesis that empathy, which is consumer understanding and audience understanding, has a positive impact on their attention, okay? And we also hypothesized that this attention can drive mental availability for brands. And we went into 2021 putting this particular hypothesis to test. And the results were quite interesting. Just as we suspected, we were able to make a direct correlation between attention, okay, and real brand and business results, okay? We found out that when you are able to increase the attention quotient of the consumer to your message, things like a brand recall, okay, brand choice, and brand preference, and ultimately, conversion happens at a much higher rate than when the attention is less. And this is quite interesting for us because we were able to create, to have what you call a strong correlation, okay, between consumers' attention and real business results. And we realize that attention is also a strong predictor of brand and business performance. From all of the tests that we, studies that we carried out, these were the key things that, came to the fore. And Media Reach OMD was not alone, in this kind of studies. We predict going into the new year that newer audience measurement metrics will emerge. And the reason driving some of this emergence of new metrics is because Google, for instance, going into the next year, have decided that they are going to abolish the use of cookies, in digital advertising. And that sort of, changes the dynamics completely. All right. In Europe, the likes of your media monitoring, as well as tracking research companies, are being challenged. So the basics of consumer understanding, consumer measurements of campaign effectiveness are being questioned. And what this means is it brings up a healthy debate, all right, that questions what we've always known about marketing and marketing effectiveness going into 2022. So we predict that even in Nigeria, some of these measurement metrics are going to emerge. We spoke about the DSO. The government at the moment has set up a panel, all right, in Nigeria that will look into audience measurements on television as well. So what are the implications for advertisers? It simply means that, for instance, with the cookieless era that I talked about earlier, we now need to begin to look at measuring campaign effectiveness in a completely different way, because the tools that we relied on to measure some of these things, impressions will no longer be enough, all right? Reach, as we know it, will no longer be enough. We now need to begin to talk about attentive reach, okay, in measuring campaign effectiveness, because at the end of the day, we think that the advertisers are the ones that will benefit the most from this, trend, because it helps us to have a deeper view of performance, all right? And we are able to measure the impact of our marketing activities, both in the short term as well as in the long term. The role of research, both third party and of course in-house, cannot be overemphasized at this point, all right? It will be very important to understand the consumers, to be close to them, to get a sense of how well what we're doing in our boardrooms or the decisions we're taking in the marketing department is positively impacting, and being able to drive that association between our efforts and the results that we're getting. And we're also saying that advertisers need to, look into building some of these competencies or the research capabilities in-house, as against, just outsourcing it to third parties alone, because data is the new oil, right? And having those capabilities in-house means that the client has first-hand access and control over, this information, and it can be very helpful in making critical business and marketing decisions. For the media owners, the implications is we're going to definitely have new conversations around KPIs and deliverables for media investments, which would impact on negotiations as well. So I don't want impressions. I don't want, rich numbers as we have it. I want a captive audience. And with new metrics, being able to measure those, metrics, then of course, the negotiation terms will have to reflect this reality. So you're not just giving me a dot audience, you are giving me active audiences that, were quite attentive to my brand message, which I'm sure, delivers on my business and marketing objectives. And they also need to, re-engineer content, because these are considerations that need to go into the kind of content that we are, creating or coming up with in the media space, as well as, driving those infusion and integration conversations, which we have spoken about, in the previous slides. So you would have to do a lot more right, to keep your audience captive on your platform, because that's ultimately what the advertisers are paying for. They're paying for the eyeballs, the share of mind that, will ultimately help them achieve their marketing goals and objectives. For the agencies in this case, not audience this time around, it's a call for responsibility, it's a call for accountability, because we are the custodians, in quote, of the media and also of consumer understanding and insights. So we would have to lead the charge in developing these new metrics, working, of course, with all parties, both the clients, the research, as well as the media owners, to be able to drive the new frontiers of measuring advert and campaign marketing effectiveness. All right. We predict that the conversations will have to evolve, all right, from GRPs as we know them today to qualitative rating points, QRPs. All right. The conversations will move from just reach, okay, to attentive reach. It will move from impressions, all right, to real-time engagement, with the content and all. And we feel that these are conversations that all parties would have to, have going into the next foreseeable future. Now, the 10th trend, okay, is looking at e-commerce, all right? Thanks to the pandemic that happened, that accelerated digital adoption, e-commerce has been one of the biggest winners or, gainers of the pandemic of 2020, as it were. And what that has done is it now offers a sizable base of, millennials and Gen Zs. If you look at the statistics you have here from Jumia, you see the average first visits to the platform by Nigerians. You have 35% being within the ages of 18 to 24 and 38% between the ages of 25 to 34, which is a combined number of over 70%, 73% to be precise. That's a huge number, all right? And most brands need to begin to look in this direction rather, okay, because e-commerce is beginning to play a very important role, creating a new route to market, as we call it, and more like changing the dynamics of sales and distribution as we used to have it in time past. So the trend here that we predict is that e-commerce, being an instant learning machine, will be instrumental to measure exposure to action. Platforms like Jumia are already, we call it, changing the model, all right? They are now opening up beyond just being an e-commerce platform to a consumer data and analytics platform where they're able to share with you data to understand the consumers that they have on their platform. So this particular data, this particular e-commerce platforms are becoming very relevant, in providing information about how the Gen Zs and the millennials, take their path to purchase or path to actions. And partnering with them will be very important. We're aware that some brands are already, taking the lead on these conversations, both in Nigeria, Ghana, and all of that. But we expect that this is definitely going to improve because you can get rich insights and information, from these platforms. So we talked about, for the implications for advertisers, e-commerce offers an opportunity for you to reach an available prospect, and you're able to follow them on that, path to purchase along the journey. E-commerce also can be considered as an extension of brand assets, all right, that can be used to learn about attribution, all right, and you can model that from your exposure to action, following them from the point of awareness to, interest, taking the action, and then post-purchase as well. And there are also opportunities for programmatic advertising, all right, or programmatic buying in here, such that our investments on the digital platform, on e-commerce, and other, related platforms are well optimized, and there's minimal wastage. For media owners, collaboration is key. beyond seeing them as just clients for advertising purpose, we could actually have cases where you collaborate with them to further develop the channel and improve on the economics of scale. So we're looking to see integration, okay, between e-commerce and the media owners as we have it today, where you are able to stimulate consumers, all right, to take action. This would mean, much unique kinds of advertising, all right, to reach consumers. DSTV is doing something along these lines, still in its experimental stage, where you are able to, from watching television, take certain action that leads you to the client's e-commerce platforms. So yeah, that's something that media owners need to begin to look at. And it could be another revenue stream or opportunity that will be opened up for them. Partners like Jumia can collaborate to develop channels. Yeah, we talked about this already. And for the audience, I think they have a unique advantage because we're going to be having a case where there's a single window of opportunities to purchase, right? So you can practically go through your entire consumer journey, within a very short period of time, and that saves them time, and they're able to more like get these products that they want, their favorite products with very little or no cash. Black Friday is an example. We're waiting to see the results, from the brands as to how well the Black Friday season in 2021 performed. And of course, while consumers, if you look at the consumer's path to purchase, the research period, which is where they are trying to get an understanding, making comparisons, before eventually settling for a brand of choice, this particular point is very crucial for most brands to target, to reach them with the relevant information that will move them or tilt them in the position of choosing, making the brand the final choice. So we need to look at that. And I think that is also an important opportunity for advertisers, because consumers rely more these days on reviews, peer reviews from other consumers or other previous buyers to make a decision on whether or not they want to go ahead with it. So these are things that we need to look at in embracing e-commerce and the opportunities that it provides for all stakeholders. The last but not least, not listed amongst our 10, but we thought it was an important point to also discuss, is the recent developments in advertising policy and regulations. Okay, in the past 1 year plus, we have seen some interesting developments. Okay, first off, on the slide here is the Nigerian Broadcast Commission's review, 6th review or amendment to the Nigerian Broadcast Code, which came up with quite a number of policies that are still being heatedly debated, as well. But government's position is the decisions they've taken is in the interest of the average Nigerians, and that's that they've been elected to serve and protect. Also, the federal government recently set up a task force on developing or coming up with an audience measurement services system. Okay, and this had multiple stakeholders, from the different associations and sectoral bodies to develop. All right, and what we're saying is we see going into the future a more active government involvement in regulating media and advertising. And the answer is very simple. Advertising has proven to be a very lucrative, cash-loaded, sector. And with the renewed interest of government, we can only expect that to keep, increasing in the days to come. The implication for advertisers is very simple. Rather than sit on the fence or wait and be reacting to what has already been done, we feel that advertisers can take a more proactive step, all right, in engaging with the regulatory authorities and relevant authorities, okay, at the point of policy formation. so as to ensure that the outcome at the end of the day is a win-win for all stakeholders. So this will be very, very important in the days to come, because we don't expect that this will be the end of it. There will definitely still be more, but engaging after a policy has been passed versus before is not exactly an efficient way to work around things like this. For media owners who seem to be quite affected on both sides, you have those that are positioned to benefit and those that will be having issues with this. We need to also begin to ask ourselves the right questions, okay? Investment in local content, some of these policies, are they developed or designed to improve the industry or not? These are questions that needs to be answered, all right? Licensing with the DSO happening now and all of that. For the consumers, they are the obvious winners here, but if care is not taken, they also might be impacted or affected because conversations around things like exclusivity around sporting content, for instance, might be a turn-off for potential investors, especially those in the VOD space, who might move their attention to other African markets, and that leaves the average Nigerian not in a good space to be. So these are with this slide, I think this is basically the last that we want to talk about, and these are the summary of all of the top 10 trends that we had curated for this particular session. I'd like to call on Dr. Uche, to share some closing thoughts before we move to the next segments and handover.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel, for giving us more insights on the other trends. I think we have set the tone for broader conversations on this matter. It's good for us to know that the media and entertainment space of Nigeria employs over 1.5 million people currently, and that by 2025, it's projected that there will be 2.5 million people employed. It's also projected that there will be, in value, the market value will be about $15 billion, according to PwC. So these trends, to a significant extent, are going to shape the extent to which we achieve these objectives. And that is why I think that it's good for us to think about them and to think strategically in terms of collaboration, co-creation, integration, and innovation to achieve them. So thank you. That's all from me. And back to you, Emmanuel.
All right. Thank you very much. Before I hand over to Nitin, the media fact book here is, I think Nitin has already spoken about this. It's one of our publications that we had shared. I'll just hand over to Nitin to take it on from here.
Okay.
Nitin?
Thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you, Dr. Uche. I think this presentation was very insightful, and I'm sure the participants and the panelists, what we have, will have their own views and understanding, and also this information will be very useful. So thank you everyone for your patience and quiet listening to this entire presentation. Now I would like to take us to the part 2 of part B of the event. So we will go to the panelist. Emmanuel, can you move to the slide? So next slide, yeah. So I would like to welcome now to our panelist. So first, Mr. Sanjay Kashyap. Sanjay, if you can open or you can show your video. So Sanjay Kashyap is
I am on video. I'm not so sure whether you can see me, Nitin.
Yes,
is it not?
We can see you, Sanjay, now. Welcome to Sanjay is the business head for Sub-Saharan Africa for Dabur International. Then second, we have Dr. Uche. I have already introduced Dr. Uche to everyone. Third, we have Mr. Inka Adebayo. Inka, if you can switch on your camera. Inka is the Executive Director for Media Investment and Sponsorship for Omnicom Media Group. The next person, an important person, we have Patrick Gomes. Patrick is a CEO for Digitex Plus, which is the digital marketing agency. Patrick, I hope your camera is on.
Yes. Thank you, Nitin. Happy to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. And unfortunately, we are missing Nike, who is the marketing director for Guinness Nigeria, because of some technical issues. Somehow the meeting invite is not able, she's not able to get the meeting invite. Okay, so I would like to proceed further, and plus for the participant, there is a news to them that what first I would say, all the participants, if you have any question, put it into the question and answer box. Do not write any question to chat box, because we will take the question and answer from the question and answer window. And also there will be a complimentary copies for the winners. So top 3 winners, if we see the good questions coming from you, so top 3 winners will get the latest copy of Media Fact books, and that will be delivered to on your address. So now we will go to the panelist, and my first question to Sanjay. Sanjay, can you hear me?
Yeah, Nitin, you're loud and
Okay, Sanjay, you have been in Nigeria for a decade now, but you come from developing markets and then also like developed markets like India. So what is your current understanding or a snapshot of the Nigerian markets, media and consumer? And where do you think that this will evolve to the next 2 to 3 years? Sanjay.
So Nitin, thank you for having me on the panel. And I'm very glad to see over 100 participants as part of this very interesting forum, very futuristic and strategic forum. Really glad to be here. Very interesting question, Nitin, on how I see Nigeria going forward. So for me, I'm a very strong, positive ambassador on Nigeria in all my meetings, in all my interactions. I always speak a lot of good about Nigeria. I've been here for a decade now. I think Nigeria is very, very young and enterprising as a nation. Today, it has a lot of dynamic choices that the Nigerian audience can make. And as Dr. Uche mentioned, Nigeria will definitely shape the greater Africa and the views there. For any organization, Nigeria will always remain the growth driver. We all very bullish always on the Nigerian economy. Yeah, there's some downsides to it as we see today, but I think overall feel on Nigeria is always very, very positive. The interesting thought that is coming to my mind as I was hearing Dr. Uche speak and then Emmanuel speak is today's audience is going to get more and more access points, which will enable them to make more and more educated calls going into the future. So it's very important organizations make their brands as essential for the Nigerian consumer. I wouldn't say small size, I think the right size, have the right size pricing going forward. And then on the media side, the engagement, the customization in real time, I think that's going to be the challenge for any marketer who's part of this session or even in the field. I think that's the key part. And if you get that model right, investments from organizations will happen. There's no stopping there because we all believe in Nigeria. We'll all continue to invest to gain our share and to grow the market and make it evolve. But I do see this media scene, Nitin, being driven more towards engagement, more towards customization, and more towards being very, very real time. You cannot take an ad and just take it for granted. As very interestingly, it was said convergence and integration. I think very nicely worded out there. That's how the media scene is definitely going to shape for the future for the next 2 to 3 years. We didn't expect what happened in the last 2 years to happen. If somebody asked this question 4 years ago, media consumption would rise like this. But there was an intervention thanks to COVID, which has changed the entire media consumption pattern. I think this is going to become a habit. This is going to be a reality. And young marketeers are going to wear new caps and address this futuristic way of evolution where the Nigerian consumer is going to make a lot more educated calls, and companies need to be real-time alert and alive to tackle and to address these need states of the ever-rising Nigerian consumer. That's how I see, Nitin, the journey cycle go forward.
Thank you, Sanjay. Very well said. Thank you very much for your view, and I completely agree with you what you just mentioned. So thank you for this. Now I will go to not any particular order, but I will go to Inca. Mr. Inca Adebayo, who is the Executive Director and Media of Media Investments and Sponsorship for Omnicom Media Group. So Inca, 2020 was an inflection point with many media opportunities in 2021, including, I know, is your favorite Nigerian Idol, which is back earlier in this year. So what's your prediction for 2022? And what kind of opportunities we can see that will continue to dominate in this market?
Thank you very much, Nitin. And it's so nice to be here. Thanks to everyone for all the useful insights and contribution. I think for me, the future is simple. The future is here and the future is now. The truth of the matter really is that we've always known the media is a monster. The only food it feeds on is content. And interestingly, I think early in the year, I was opportune to be at the Eddies Award where I presented an award. And the question was simple. If content is king, how many have we crowned? That was my question early in the year. But I'm glad to say that down the year, I can see a whole lot of effort in that direction. Many of the, because what happened during the pandemic is that the media was laid bare. The media was made naked. Many, the eyeballs we are always looking for, the advertisers, the agencies, all the eyeballs we are to, but there was no content to feed them. And like Sanjay rightly said, there's no way you can hold back the average Nigerian. Is it that you give them what they want or they move elsewhere? Interestingly, Nigerians migrated, and that was the first time that Netflix recorded the kind of patronage they've never recorded. Because you can't hold back the average Nigerian. All the stations we are watching, news, and many things, many of those things we are coming negative and all that. They wanted something to calm their nerves, something to relax them, something to refresh and bring them back to life. Because you need something to hang on. And that content was not available. But lo and behold, it was the mid of that event that we created the likes of Turn On Friday, Owambe Show, and all of that. So going into the future, what do I see? I see a situation where it's going to be much more engaging. If somebody had told us before now that, look, you can actually make a family sit back in their homes, dress up as if they are going to party, and record themselves and send in video, you would have said, oh, no, it can't, it's not possible. Yes, it is possible. Because the average Nigerian lock on will like excitement. And those are things that brand should be aware of and should be ready to cash on in. The passion of the average Nigerian, if you give them what they like, you can be sure they will go all out in support of it. And we can see it play out clearly. So I think for me, what I'm actually looking for in the nearest future is a situation where, in fact, the future is there, like I said, all those things, those engagement content, those interactive content, those are the days when you give people content and they sit back. People want to be asking questions. They want to play an active part. They want to be actively involved. So the content that are going to be leading the way going forward will be content that gives the opportunity to have their say and have their way. The fact that I have a panelist who analyzes sport does not make them the best. There are people who are sitting back home, it's fine. Whatever you're analyzing, I can even do better. It's only in Nigeria that we see Okocha play on the field and we feel we can do better than him. It's only in Nigeria that you see Alibaba cracking joke and they feel the person at home is telling you what joke is can do better. Give them the opportunity. Let them have their say and let them have their way. Now the content is king and the consumer is now king. It's now time for us to crown them. Thank you.
Thank you, Inca. I like what you said, and we have observed that in 2021, how content is playing important role. Even from the advertisers' point of view, every advertisers are looking at the content. And Emmanuel has mentioned a very valid point, the quality GRPs people are looking at, and quality GRPs, you get it when you look at the content. So it's no more buying the same channel or program, but if the content is good, people, even the viewers are moving to the content, and content is driving, and it is going to drive in 22. Absolutely, or bang on. Thank you very much for this. So let me now move to the digital part. I would like to, a lot of people probably wants to know, because digital is growing, exponentially in this market. So my question obviously to the guru of digital, Mr. Patrick Gomes, who is also, I call him guru because he knows about the digital in depth. So he's also the CEO of digital marketing from Digitex Plus. So Patrick, my question would be, the digital as a medium has been on acceleration mode. So what kind of growths have you seen on various platforms, and what does the digital landscape look like today? Your point of view, I will appreciate your point of view on this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nitin. Happy to be here. I think for us in the digital marketing space, we've seen maybe a point of inflection also in terms of maybe how the numbers have advanced. So if you look at maybe a device which every Nigerian carries, a mobile phone is a point of contact when it comes to digital. Of course, when we look at the SMS marketing, of course, it started from a very old way of marketing to people. But today, even SMS marketing is something which is still a hero and a huge performance marketing tool. So yes, if you look at maybe the numbers in terms of mobile phones today, we have about maybe if you were to really look at it from a unique point of view, about 163 million Nigerians carry a mobile phone. But if you look at the data subscribers, again, across the 4 telcos, you will have about 119 million data subscribers. So that's the possibility of reach if you look at it from an SMS marketing. If you look at it from a pure maybe database or data-led marketing, so to say. Now, if you make a reference to the Media Facts book, if you look at the reach of internet, as per the AMS 2020 data, reach of internet is about 48% in Nigeria. Now that's massive. I call it massive because almost half of the Nigerians can be reached through internet when it comes to all kind of possibilities. But if you look at some markets, especially Lagos, if you look at maybe Southeast or South, these are markets where the reach of internet is much more higher, in the range of 70%. So internet today is almost neck to neck when it comes to maybe other mass media opportunities, and that's the potential which internet today offers. If you get into specifics, for example, search, there's no competition to search, it's only Google. When you look at the numbers, about 800 million searches every month, and this is massive. 800 million searches every month is massive, and that's something which is growing at the rate of 44% year on year. So that basically speaks about the needs and wants and how they've been catered on the internet. If you look at maybe the display via Google, it's about 5.7 billion impressions which Google can serve via DV360. So that's the kind of display reach we have in Nigeria. If you look at YouTube especially has grown maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe leaps and bounds, I would say. Today, YouTube offers you close to 33 million monthly active users. So that's really massive. It's almost like maybe a combination of few television stations put together, right? So that's the kind of reach YouTube offers today in Nigeria. If you look at Facebook or if you look at Instagram, Facebook today offers you 24 million internet users. Instagram offers you about 9 million, so to say. But I would want to mention maybe one platform which has grown exponentially, which is Twitter. Twitter, a few years ago, if you really look at it, was something which was never a first port of call, but it happened to be first port of call for many microblogging websites, which basically started with elections and many other things, so to say. And I think with the pandemic, it really took off. When you look at the numbers, how Twitter has grown. Twitter today, of course, it's on suspension since June for the last couple of months, but if you look at the numbers in May 21, Twitter was almost as high as able to reach 63% of the internet user base in Nigeria, which had actually grown by 47% from 2020. So it's massive. It's massive. I think the Twitter being the first port of call and maybe also being able to get into the expressive way of maybe for Nigerians, I think that's been helpful for Twitter to grow, so to say. So these are the maybe few data points I would say in overall. For me, internet really offers a great way of reaching, not just reaching but also engaging not just engaging, but also getting consumers' attention and ensuring that, you are able to get to maybe various action points, be it intent, be it action via e-commerce, or even intent by taking certain actions and so on and so forth. The entire journey today can be mapped on the internet, and that basically is the beauty and the potential of the internet. And of course, it gets you data real time, so you're able to do attribution, you're able to have your own learning analysis from it, and you're able to interpret the data you would want to ensure that feeds back into your next campaign, so to say. So that's the landscape of the digital in Nigeria in a nutshell.
Thank you, Patrick. Very well said. Yes, internet is growing. It's grown now, and I'm sure 2022 is also a very, very positive years for the internet. And we can even see the trend of media also, how advertisers are moving from traditional also to digital media. So very well said. Yeah. So maybe now I would like to come to Dr. Uche. Since you are the faculty and academic director of LBS, so you are a neutral person in this forum. So we would like to hear from you on the economic scenario and what's in store for media and entertainment as a sector. Could you please highlight on that?
Thank you, Nitin. So looking at the economic scenario, we've already said we expect to see inflation still being more or less high, interest rates also on the high side. In terms of Forex, really, there's a lot of uncertainty around whether we will have stable rates or not, and whether we will have another big devaluation or not. So a lot of things are still in the air. But the good news that I see is whatever happens to the economy, as Yinka was saying, we will still have the vast majority of Nigerians being hungry for content, and for entertainment, and for credible stories and inspirational stories. Not only for them, but as you know, Nigeria is becoming the hub for entertainment content in Africa. And so a lot of what is produced here is going to be exported elsewhere. This opens up opportunities because it's an opportunity for those in the media space to think of how to exploit further the AFTA agreements, how to export their content, how to use technology effectively. Of course, that requires thinking differently about their business models, evolving away from models that are more traditional. And I think the fintechs, if we see the investments coming into our fintech space in Nigeria, I think there is something to learn from the models they are using to attract those investments. So the summary is, it's not business as usual. The economy is harsh, but there are opportunities for growth that we can exploit. Thank you.
Okay, great answer. Thank you, Dr. Uche. Maybe one question is getting in my mind for Yinka. Yinka, I know you are sitting in a tough situation because one side you have to manage the advertisers and one side you have to manage the media partner. So considering the current media scenario and what's in store for future, the media inflation is evident. So on one hand, controlling inflation to an extent is key, and the value creation is also key. So what's your strategy to combat and still deliver on clients' objectives, as a media specialist, I would say?
Yeah, thank you, Nitin. Well, going forward, what we are going to be doing is not going to be significantly different from what we've been doing before. And I dare say that if there's any country that has benefited from the pandemic, I think Nigeria happens to be one of them. Apart from the issue of we losing lives and all of that, which is quite unfortunate. But man, technology has been with us forever. But now we are now putting it to good use. And you know one thing about Nigeria, anybody, once you can't take it for Nigeria, they might be very late in coming to the party. But when they are at the party, even other part of the world will look at them and wonder what has ever happened. See what has happened to telco. Now getting to Zoom, so the use of internet is going to be big. And for me, going forward, the strategy is going to be simple. What have we been doing before? Strategic alliance. The global language of business is collaboration. We are going to not only leave content development to the content, we are going to be sitting with them to develop content that reshape the landscape of broadcasting, content that reshape the landscape of TV, content that can help radio to win back the Gen Z, The Gen Zs, yes, many people are turning radio to video now right now. So all those radio stations need to wake up to the party and begin to deliver value that goes beyond just broadcasting. When we are going up, radio is seen as a medium where you talk, you don't receive response. Now you get your response instantaneously. How do you now use internet to bring it to life? So we are going to be working with content owners who are headed in the right direction. And what's that right direction? The right direction is where you deliver value to clients. Like they always say in life, the bridge you are going to walk across, you don't build it when you are ready for the trip. You build it year first. So we've been doing it before. Now is an opportunity to take it to another level by identifying partners who are headed in the right direction and making sure that we collaborate with them. Once I've collaborated with you and I supported you in bringing that content to life, I'll have a say in the price. I'll have a say in what my client pays for that content. And at the end of the day, the rest is history. So for us, I think we are looking for partners who are not only going to bring value to the table, but value must be seen to be on the table. And clients will gladly and be willing to pay the right price for the right value. So it's going to be value for the advertiser, value for us as an agency, value for the client, value for the viewers, and it's going to be win-win for us all. So we are going to intensify that effort and take that collaborative language to another level. Thank you.
Yeah. So what you are saying is not only about the content, but even the quality of production, probably, right? So where client wants to come on this. Absolutely.
The quality of production, and like Emmanuel rightly said, we sit on the gamut of information that we can bring to the table and be able to use to advantage in guiding the content owner what needs to be put together, in guiding clients on what needs to be invested in, and making sure that value is not only delivered, but is seen clearly to have been delivered.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very true. Very tough job though, but it's I would say it's a tough because client will still ask for the best, and media
like they always say in life, crisis will always remain the best platform for a good manager to excel. So yes, let's get set and be ready to take it on. Not a problem.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inka. So I think one more question I have in my mind for digital, because maybe going to Patrick again. Patrick, this e-commerce, in Nigeria growing exponentially. We have seen the growth from last 2 years, So with this digital as a medium, inclusive of mobile, there is a huge opportunity to drive mental availability and physical availability. So could you shed some light on this, please?
Yeah, sure, Nitin. So basically, if you look at, what the pandemic has done to e-commerce, I mean, if you really look at the pandemic and everything about it had basically accelerated, 10 years of digital advancement in just 6 months. That's massive. So if you look at maybe certain sectors, for example, retail, they faced headwinds. We know what happened to the retail outlets and basically all the ways, the traditional ways of buying products and services. So these are the sectors that faced headwinds, but it resulted into tailwinds for many, and especially e-commerce. So if you really look at the numbers today, for example, from an e-commerce point of view, if you look at the Jumia stats, what Emmanuel was talking about, close to 50 million app downloads. I mean, that's the audience which is having the Jumia app on their mobile phone. About 34 million are unique visitors. So that basically speaks about the scale one has to offer, and if you really look at the kind of visits that they have, and maybe the uniques, if you really look at it, which is about 780 million page views and about 130 million sessions that they have. Close to 10 minutes of, or rather 8 to 9 minutes of maybe dwell time is what we can see on Jumia. And if you look at age group also being maybe the millennials and the Gen Zs. Now, if you really combine the theory of mental availability and physical availability, yes, they are there online, and they're online for a particular context. So when they are in their path to purchase, while in the path to purchase, if programmatically, an ad is getting served to them on the Jumia website, I think it just serves the purpose to ensure that that person is able to take next steps, so to say. And that is great, because you're really cutting down on time, or maybe getting people off the path. If you look at the traditional buying or traditional consumer journey, there are many influences today, and those influences essentially because of various things that are happening. It could be offline, it could be online, it could be online from multiple sources, and so on and so forth. There's a likelihood of somebody getting off track or off path to purchase. Fortunately, when it comes to Jumia, it just closes the gap, and you are able to, or any e-commerce, it's able to close the gap, and you're able to, convert that journey in much more faster, whether it is intent or whether it is action by sale, etc., etc. So that is basically now possible, and more important, you are able to now understand audiences, and you are able to interpret their behavior, and you're able to cater to them based on those behaviors. So you are even able to maybe do some kind of retargeting, so to say, and including remarketing. If somebody has bought a product which is very related or maybe surrogate to another category whatsoever, you are able to retarget and remarket, so to say. So that is basically what you are able to do. I would say it is more about not programmatic marketing, but it's about programmatically able to reach the audiences to ensure that the available audience are used in a meaningful manner, so to say.
Thank you, Patrick. It's very clear. Maybe Sanjay, I have one more marketing questions related before we go to the question answer from the participants. So your portfolio of brands are in hair care and dental care category. You recently launched a Red Ayurvedic toothpaste, under the Dabur brand Nigeria, which was a very good launch. So is on a growth trajectory. I could see that Dabur in terms of media investment, media opportunity, or digital switch or audience measurements, and many more. So what's the opportunity you see for your brands going into 2022 when you're budgeting, and maybe beyond 2022?
So Nitin, I'm very, very bullish on Nigeria. I'm going to repeat some of the words. I think there's a great canvas to paint in the next 2 to 3 years. Organizations which are bold to stand, survive, because the timing is not so great. So I think a lot of things will change from the past. As Jinka said, there'll be a value-driven thing. Patrick said there's a different approach which is happening on the digital part, on the e-com part. I think we all need to pick our... So the broad brush marketing, I don't think that will work in the future. It's going to be more customized, more focused, more value-driven, a win-win type of a situation. And I see a lot of opportunity for the entire hair care business, where we lead, and also the dental or the oral care business, where we are a very strong challenger to the big guys, but we are the firm players in the herbal oral care segment. So I really see consumers making a very strong choice, an educated choice. And thus I'm going back to what Dr. Uche said, brands will become essentials. Who will become essentials will stick and will stay. The others will not. So I think it's important that business houses, marketeers, pick their opportunities as what they see brands. What works for them might not work for others. So the broad brush marketing approach, I don't think that will come back. As proliferation of media happens, as fragmentation happens, consumers start making a more educated choices of what they want to watch and what timings they want to watch, why mobile has grown and why so much of convergence of one media is happening over the other. That mobile gives you access anytime you want. Maybe the content is the same, maybe the news is the same, but the entire accessibility of the content really changes. Thus, it's going to be a very interesting domain where digital layer on the classical media stations layer will become a very interesting dialogue between the two. And any smart business house of marketing will allow consumer to move between the two to add credibility, to get an experience, to convince him, and of course, engage him. I think engagement will be key in the times to come.
Yeah. So I could clearly see from the advertiser's perspective, engagement is going to be key for, for FMCG categories or any for the brand for that matter. Very well said. Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. So before I go to the question and answer, I would like to ask one more question to Patrick. Patrick, probably it's not related to the digital, but you know that recently government has announced 13-member task force to deliver the audience measurements service in Nigeria. And in the past, I'm asking this question to you, Patrick, because I know you played an active role in a part of NIPAN's technical committee. So which is, bringing is quality audience measurement in Nigeria will be a game changer for all in the ecosystem. Mainly advertisers, agencies, broadcasters, including government and the media and entertainment industry as a whole. So what are your key expectations from this? And when do you think that it is going to begin?
Okay, I think Nitin, the journey has begun, and thanks to the government and government's involvement in driving this right from the RFP stage and awarding the RFP, to a chosen agency to implement the audience measurement. Fortunately, with government's involvement, many things are also happening, including the DSO, which is happening. In many markets, the government has mandated, for DTH providers to ensure that they basically plug in their data into the audience measurement, which is available in the market. And since government is involved with the DSO thing happening and with various DTH players operating, the term which we use is called RPD, which is reverse part data, that will enable data getting plugged into the audience measurement system. Fortunately, we have all industry stakeholders together at this point in time with government's involvement, including representatives of various bodies like ADVAN, APCON, BON, NIPAN, etc. That basically speaks volume because everybody coming together to drive something which the industry has been waiting for a long time. I think we are on the right trajectory at this moment. Good things will definitely happen. When you look at any new audience measurement, it starts by looking at the establishment surveys. So there's a plan for establishment survey to maybe interview about 90,000 Nigerians, pan Nigeria, and then maybe set up a panel, I would say, which is about 7,000 to 8,000 households. Now, when you look at household, if you look at the current audience measurement system, it is more of individuals where you administer a diary question. But when you get into people meter with 7,000, it's almost times 4 or times 5, depending on the maybe size of the household. So you're able to now understand not just the individual, but you are able to understand the entire household once the people meter data, people meter setup is done. To me, it means a lot because now from moving from a 15-minute understanding of what people are watching to a minute-by-minute rating speaks volume, which means you are able to now understand minute-by-minute behavior of what the audiences have been watching, how they've been exiting, what they've been watching, maybe from a switch-on mode to a switch-off mode, or zapping between 2 maybe stations or 3 stations or whatsoever. Those are great things to understand because that data, which is called ebb and flow, is something which is very important to understand the stickiness or the loyalty for a particular program. Having said that, up until now today, if you really look at it from a ADX point of view, now what is going to happen is there's going to be maybe confluence of everything. So you have the ADX data, which also will be plugged in. You have the program logs also being made available. So you're really able to understand everything, what programs people have been watching versus time belt. You are able to understand what kind of ads people have been watching because still up until now, you never knew what is the kind of rating your ad is getting. For example, if you look at any developed or developing market, close to, there's a drop close to 30% to 40% when you come to look at maybe what is the rating of the program versus what is the rating of the ads. Not necessarily when people are watching the program, the same rating is likely to continue with the ad. So we've seen this 30-40% drop when it comes to ad breaks. So not necessarily, the program rating is supposed to be what the ad rating is. So you will be able to get more granular data, I would say. A lot is going to happen. Because, for example, today, if we are happy with 60% reach, when once the data gets implemented, maybe that reach may fall to maybe even 40% because it gets that granular. What it means is basically, it's going to be definitely, maybe blessings to many quality content, but it's going to be something which is not going to be a good one for maybe the not so quality content which was available on television, so to say. So yes, that's going to be a true reflection of what people have been watching. So maybe quality content will reflect with the quality ratings one will get, and the not so will quite understand. I think for us, it is also going to help the entire ecosystem, which is not just the advertisers and the agencies and the broadcaster, but also the content owners who've been struggling for a long. I mean, if you really look at the media and entertainment contribution to the GDP of Nigeria, it's such an insignificant one. If you look at various markets, developing or developed markets, if you look at the contribution of the media and entertainment sector, has been a decent number. I would say maybe close to 1%, 2%. But if you really look at Nigeria, it's in decimals. Now, what it means is once this thing comes in, it will encourage the content owners to produce quality content. Ratings will be a true reflection of what people have been watching. Good rating will definitely get good price, and that will evolve over a period of time. So yes, the trajectory is right. I think we're on the right track. It's just that time will basically speak, and I definitely see a great future maybe in the next 3 to 5 years once the rating gets implemented, and the entire the task force which has been put in place by the government works for the benefit and for the industry.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for this detailed explanation. And I'm sure this new measurements is a game changer for Nigerian market. It's very true. So I'm getting some questions, but I think Sanjay, you want to say something?
Nitin, I'll have to leave. I have another session. I think,
no problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sanjay, I actually you are on dot time. So thank you very much for your participation and really appreciate that. Thank you,
Thank
Sanjay.
you. Really love the session, guys. Fantastic, very good thinking. And compliment OMD team as well as LBS team for putting up such a fantastic forum. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
To all
Thank you,
of
Sanjay.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. Yeah, bye. So Patrick, there is a question coming from Patrick. I think he was typing, but I will just read out here. In what stage of growth is programmatic advertising in Nigeria? For instance, do we have a demand side platform owners or supply side platform owners and agency trading desks? So would you like to take this question, Patrick?
Yeah, I would say programmatic is moving to an advanced stage in Nigeria, thanks to DV360, which is the DSP. And if you really look at that enabling you to buy programmatically, is a great way for agencies to take advantage of the available inventory. Yes, for a supply side platform, we have things like AdSense and so on and so forth, which basically takes care of aggregating all that inventory which is available to ensure that it gets bought through DSPs like DV360. So I would say it is basically at an advanced stage, or rather getting into an advanced stage, and DV360 was recently, I would say recently, but yes, made available in Nigeria, and that basically is a game changer for many advertisers and many agencies.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Thank you, Patrick. So there are many questions coming here. So I don't know where because of the timing. So what I would like to take, and most of them have been answered also. I think Dr. Uche has answered, Patrick has answered the question. Some questions answered by Emmanuel. I can see that. But one question, Emmanuel, maybe for you, if you can hear, I don't know whether you answered this question. This media trend did not consider the outdoor advertising segment. Is it deliberate? So would you like to highlight on that? Is it from Akachi, this question?
Yeah, so I actually responded to him, right?
Oh, you responded.
Yeah, we had shared some stats and data on out of home, as that, of course, which included out of home, and also made reference to out of home when we're talking about the audience measurement metrics slides. However, we know that the trends can be as much as 20, 30 and all, but we're limited to just focusing on 10 for this particular presentation. So that's why it might look like we didn't have anything specific in details for out of home, but we touched on it, in some of those particular trends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. I think, there are many questions coming, but because of the timing and everybody has their own other assignments. So what we will do, those who have written the questions, I think we will, like I earlier mentioned, the top 3, but rather than top 3, we will give the complimentary copies to all the people who have asked questions, participants. So we will arrange that. I'm sure if you can drop your email ID, that will help us so we can reach one of our person from our Media Reach OMD will reach out to you, and we will hand over the copy. So once again, thank you very much everyone for joining this session, especially to Patrick, to Inka, to Sanjay has left, and unfortunately Nike could not join, Dr. Uche, Emmanuel and Uche. Dr. Uche, fantastic presentation, very insightful. Some of the people are asking, can we get the presentation? Of course, I think we should share the presentation with those who are interested. They should get the copy, and we need to just tell them how they can get the copy. So once again, for all the participants, all the attendees, thank you very much. And it was a great or honor to have you. And I'm sure if there are any question and answer or website, you can reach to our website, or we can reach to any one of us, and definitely we will answer them as and when possible, whether it is OMD or whether it is LBS. And Dr. Uche, thank you to your team for arranging this session. It's very insightful. And we also thank you from the entire OMD team and from the panelists for organizing this event. And we should keep doing such events which are insightful and which is helping Nigeria's media landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you so much. My pleasure. And indeed, as you said, we should continue and we will continue. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Emmanuel, I just want everybody to see the copy of MediaFacts book, how it looks. So can you go to that slide so that everybody can see before we close the presentation? Yeah. So this is the MediaFacts books, guys, we are talking about. And this latest copy will be printed by next week. Online copy is available, but we will give you the physical copy of this. So once again, thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you, Nitin, and thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.